The next one we'll work on is going to be the hero character. So for the hero, we're going to have to set up the input for the movement so that we can use our joystick or we can use our mouse and keyboards, move them around, have them shooting. The basic setup for that's all going to happen inside his hero script. Let's go ahead and go into it and start working it over. Remember, you can double click on it and you can open it up. So what we have right here is going to be the hero. Again, it's still with our other scripts that we've been working on, the magic orb and the cannonball. The hero script, let's start off with some really basic elements here. Let's go ahead and just work on moving the character around inside the scene. So what we've looked at before, if you remember the update, this is going to be something that constantly is checked while code is running. For our update, we want to make a basic move method. This is going to allow us to move the player around. So let's make move. So the move option, what we're going to look for is some form of input, and then the input is going to tell us, is it a positive value or a negative value, so that we know whether we're moving forward or backward. We'll go ahead and start in by just defining a couple of elements here. We'll say float, and we're going to do this one local to just move. We don't need to make it public or accessible outside of this method. We're going to look for an input. The input is going to be a get axis. The get axis is going to allow us to say that whether it's a joystick handle, whether it's a keyboard button, the value is going to be -1 to +1. If it's not being pressed, it'll be 0. We're going to look for our vertical, and vertical, be sure you spell it with a capital V. And this is going to be where we start to look at, we'll kind of bounce back and forth here between this and Unity, is that the get axis vertical on our input. Well, if we go back to Unity real quick, if you go into the menu and down in through edit, down to project settings, you'll notice there's an option for input. If you click on input, what you may notice or may not notice is that you don't see anything right away. It's because by default this is rolled up. You want to roll it out, just left click to open it up, and you'll notice that inside of here are a set of already predefined options. The ones we're currently going to be looking at is one called horizontal and vertical. There's going to be and can potentially be multiple versions of horizontal and vertical. So you may ask yourself, what's the difference? Well, for instance, with this vertical, it's using a key which is down and up, the arrow keys, and it's also using a secondary S and W. Well, in this vertical right here, we're actually looking for nothing on these. We're actually using the joystick. So when we're calling up to get the vertical axis, we're actually using the input from there, as long as we are using the right word for it. Alright, so similar to like the magic orb, we do need a speed. So let's go ahead and do a public variable. We'll just say public float, and we'll do a move speed, and we'll make this move speed, we'll go ahead and do the 5.0. It seemed to be a pretty decent one to start with. The next thing we want to do is on the move. We have our move float, which is getting the axis for vertical, forward, and backward. Let's go ahead and just take that straight into our translate. So we know that we can do the transform, translate, and in our translate, we just want to move forward and backward, which means we just want the z-axis. So we're going to say move. And remember, when you do the move, just like the other, we want to do the delta time. That way we have a nice controlled move. Alright, so doing just this by itself, we're updating, we're getting an input. The input is going to tell us we're moving forward or backward. That means that if we go over to our scene, we can hit play. And if you use the arrow key forward and backward, you'll see you can move forward and backward. If you use W and S, if you have a joystick, you can use the left thumbstick and move forward and backward with it. Now left and right doesn't do anything because we're not capturing that value just yet. So let's go ahead and go back into our script. Alright, so let's make sure we've got everything set up for capturing the movement for the forward and backward. We have our move speed, we have our update, and inside of our move we're currently going forward and we can go backward. So as long as you've got this, then you've set yourself up for movement with the character. Now the next thing we want to do is rotate. We're going to put in a rotation value. We'll say public float, and we'll just call this rotate speed, and we'll have him rotate at the same speed for now as he moves. In the move method, let's go ahead and just do move, and then we'll just do a rotation, and the rotation is going to get our same axis, except this time we're going to call the horizontal. And be sure, if you don't, when you do it, if you don't get the right movement, then there's a really good chance that you may have misspelled this if you actually don't get movement with it. Alright, oh, and then we'll have to make sure we actually use these inside of there as well. Alright, so we have our rotation. Now we're just going to do the transform, and instead of translate, we'll do rotate. So rotating, we're going to do the rotation, and then we'll do the delta time on it. And we'll do this way. So by doing this, we're saying that we want to rotate on the Y, and we're going to move on the Z. Okay? And then the last thing that we want to do for these is go ahead and add in the move speed. So we'll just add it up here. We'll just say times move speed, and then right here we'll do times rotate speed. And that way the values are different, so if you decide that you want him to turn quicker, he can turn quicker or slower. Alright, so let's check this, and then we'll have that movement, the basic movement elements finished off. So when you press play, once it gets compiled, you should be able to move forward and move back, and then you should be able to rotate around. And if we can't rotate around, we just want to double check that we've labeled everything right. And let's go back one more time, just be sure everything's set up. So we have our horizontal, and we have our vertical. We've got our rotation set up. So once you have all of this set into place, then be sure just to save, and then the next thing that we'll do is work on putting in shooting for the player and then health for the player.